Hello everyone and welcome to another Foreman community demo. So if you have any questions, feel free to write to us on the YouTube live chat. You can also find us on the Foreman channel on LibreChat, and also if you look at the YouTube description, there is a link to a community post with the lineup of this demo. If you're interested, if you have questions, if you'd prefer to join us here on the Google Meet, take a look at that link, and in the comments there is a link to come and join us live today. If you've any issues with buffering, any issues with audio, any issues just say with the size of items on the screen, if you need them enlarged, for example, just feel free to call it out on the chat or come over and just join us. All are welcome. We want to encourage as much participation as possible, so don't be shy. Feel free to join us. So far, I can tell the YouTube stream looks good. There is, however, somebody working outside my window, so I hope there won't be too much disruption. And just before we begin, I have today just one announcement. So as I said, actually this isn't the announcement, but Adam was asking if there would be something special for demo 111, and if you remember, for demo 100 we had Lukasz do a lovely quiz for us, but I think the gift of demo 111 will be a slightly shorter demo today. So short and sweet demo this morning, this afternoon for you. So maybe that is the gift. So just one announcement. It looks like, and perhaps if Amit is watching along with me, he might be able to update in the chat, but it looks like today that we are going to have the release of Foreman 3.3. Whenever the release happens, we will post the announcements in our community. We will post to Twitter as well, so you will get an idea. You will get just keep an eye out for updates. Just do upgrade as soon as you can. There's a lot of bug fixes included with each release, so the more you keep up to date, the less issues you probably will have overall. And if you have any problems with the upgrade, just please let us know in the community forum, so I'll keep an eye out, and if that goes GA while we're talking, I'll let you know. But other than that, that is pretty much everything from me for now, so we can begin our demo. And up first today we have Jeremy, and Jeremy, oh my God, Jeremy is going to talk to us about the new host details, remote execution job, UI improvements. So I'm just going to stop sharing now and pass to Jeremy.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay. Hopefully that should be sharing now. And yes, I am going to tell you about some user experience improvements around enabling Tracer and remote execution job polling. So as you know, Tracer is an app that lets you know which of the services you need to restart on your host. And as someone on the community discourse said the other day, it could be viewed as a security feature or a security issue, because if you've updated some software and you haven't restarted that service yet, this software is not really, the update's not really complete. So Tracer helps you know which services that applies to, so you can restart them and get on with your life. So in order to use Tracer, we have this tab on the new host details page, and we make you enable traces. And really all that's doing is installing the Host Tools Tracer package on the host. And so what users were doing is they were clicking this Enable Tracer button, and then it would return you back to this screen here. And you would get a notification that the job started, but it was still a little bit confusing because this Enable Traces button was still here. So users would just click it again and again and again which it doesn't really hurt anything, but just adds to confusion. So the recommendation from the usability study was to add some sort of progress indicator, which is what we did. So now when you click Enable Tracer, you get this nice spinner here and a link to view the job if you want. You also get this toast notification, which you've always gotten, but the difference here is that it's sticky. It sticks around until the job is complete. And now when the job completes, you get another toast notification, which you did not get before, that tells you that it's completed. And it's nice and green. And now we see our traces here, which is beautiful. So the way this happens is it's done through remote execution job polling. So every 1 second or so, I think we ask, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? And we just wait till it's complete and use that to change our display. I realized after I completed this that a lot of other areas could also benefit. Like on the content tab, we have packages, errata, module streams. They all have remote execution actions. So say when you're removing a package, we've also added most of the improvements there. We decided not to add the spinner that takes up the entire screen. But when you do a remote execution action, you'll still get the two toast notifications rather. The one at the beginning and at the end of the job. And also you'll have these disabled checkboxes that will tell you why they're disabled. So keep in mind, this only works with remote execution, obviously. If you're still using Catello Agent for some reason, you will get none of these improvements and everything will hopefully continue to work as it did before. So that is our tracer enabling and Rex improvements for today. As always, I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. Does anyone have any questions or comments or feedback for Jeremy? Feel free to come off mute if you've joined us here on the Google Meet. And I think that we have caught up with the live stream at this point, so I would say that there are no questions for Jeremy at this time. So if you think of something during the course of the demo, just feel free to pipe up at any time. And in the meantime, we can move on to our next demo, which is Samir. And Samir is going to talk to us about change in component content view and the changes. It's changing it to content view. Oh yeah, this thing. And also he's going to be talking to us about alternative content source UI updates and auditing, as well as index software vendor for installed packages. I hope I've done justice to this, Samir.
Yeah. All right. Let me share my screen here. All right. Let's start with the elephant in the room that we have had for a couple of releases here. So when we went live with the new content views UI, we introduced an sort of a new term, which was component content views and composite content views. So we heard a lot of feedback saying it was causing confusion, the use of term component content views. So we decided to listen to that feedback and remove that term altogether from the UI. So now you won't see component content views as a term anywhere on the UI. So these tooltips, etc. I'm not sure if you can see the tooltips on the screen share, but you won't see the term component content views in most places, in all of the places on the UI at least. So that was one update. Next up, I wanted to talk about one field that we have added to the installed packages. This came as a request as well, which is vendor. So now you should be able to see vendor information and also search based on what vendors your packages came from. You'll also see that if you look it up in like on the database. So that's another thing. The last thing I had to talk about was some updates on the alternate content sources UI. So this lives under lab features for now, and this is under active development. So one of the things is refresh. So you can refresh alternate sources from the UI with the action buttons here. You'll get the same notification. It's not polled on the index list UI. So once we get to the details view, then we'll probably think of adding polling here. And another thing was we have enabled audits for alternate content sources. So if you go to the audit screen, you should be able to see a refresh action. It also tells you about updates on the alternate content source, creation, etc. So you can audit any changes or creations there. And yeah, that was all I had for today.
Okay, thank you, Samir. Can we just go back to the introduction of the component content views? Yeah, I was just myself and Maximilian. I remember at the time we were quite confused by this. So, are you saying so? Component content view only ever meant content view, and you just wanted to like what? Can you explain a bit the because they're abbreviate as Maximilian is saying in the chat. They're both component and composite content views are both abbreviated to CCV in several places, and also so what if you introduce component content views, they're now just referred, were they always just content views and it was just a terminology update? Samir, can you clarify?
Yeah, so they were always called content views, the simple or component content views. So we tried to differentiate between like content views that consist of repositories versus like composite content views, which you can add simple content views to. So it's like a bucket for adding multiple content views. So yeah, so the use of the term component content view, I think, led to a lot of confusion because that was a slight change from the old UI. And they've always been known as like content views, the simple content views, which take repositories. So on the new UI, you also have like a help icon here just to tell you the difference. So composite content views basically contain different content views, and content views contain repositories.
Okay. I think I would love if engineers could get sent to a naming things camp. It would make my life, I think Maximilian's life, a whole lot easier as well. But thank you for the explanation. I'm just looking at Maximilian's comment here in the chat, and he's saying, I assume downstream products will never ever use component content view as terminology. Maybe we can cheat and stick to content view even for Foreman docs. And Jeremy is saying, just for the benefit of the stream, Jeremy is saying component content views remains in a few places in API parameters and in Hammer, but it's no longer in the web UI. Okie doke. Okie doke.
So the places where you'll see component content view in Hammer and API params, they haven't been changed from the old implementation. So whenever you see content views in the context of composite content views, they'll be called components of the composite. So I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. It's just that's engineers love naming things in close proximity to other things, but that's okay. I appreciate that that the Catello team were willing to take the feedback and maybe rethink the name change. Also, much appreciated, Samir, and I think I'll just have a quick check to see are there any other questions for you with regards to any of other of your demos while we were speaking. And I don't think so. So thank you very much, Samir. And let us move on now. And up next is Nofar. And Nofar is going to talk to us about creating a host from a host group and also improving the visibility of any organization in any location, which is it's kind of like a 101 issue that lots of people have.
Yes, thank you. So can you see my screen? Yes.
Yep,
right.
all's good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'll start with the first change, which is a change to the visibility of any organization in any location, which you can see here on top. So we added those two icons to indicate that these are special names. It's not like in any organization or other location. So this is the first change. Visual change. And the second one is that we added validation to prevent from an organization to be named any organization or from a location to be named any location. So I can show you for the organization that if you will try to create an organization with the same name, it doesn't matter if it's capital or not, you will get this error that any organization is reserved. And if you will still try, I don't know, like maybe to add some letter like that, it will work. But you can see here that it will look different. So you will still have the indication that you're using a regular organization or a global organization. It's not working currently because I need to do submit, but yeah, here. So right now you can see any organizations, but without the icon. And this feature is currently only working for English. So we would like to hear your opinion if someone has suggestions or maybe thinks that we should add this validation for other languages. So right now I'm showing you the code that I added to do that. So just in the location and the organization models, the code is the same for both of them. We added here this array, which only included the words like the text in English. And we added a simple validation method to check that. So if anyone has suggestions or opinion about this subject, please feel free to mention it. And meantime, I will move on to the next change. Okay, so the next topic is regarding the host groups, which, sorry, I need to go back to any organization. Yes, so we also added functionality to create a host from the host group page. So what we added is this link here that allows you to create a host directly from the host group. So what this link does is fills out the host group here and also fills out any other fields that in this case, the test host group had. So I guess you believe me that the architecture, for example, on the operating system were filled according to the test host group. And basically, this is the same functionality that you can do by choosing the host group from here, from the create host page. But still, it's a nice feature to have that you can also create it from here and you don't have to go to the host and create host and then pick it. But this is done automatically for you. Okay, and I think that's it for me.
That's great, Nofar. There is one question here in the chat from Maximilian, and Maximilian is wondering which versions of Foreman will include the create host from the host group page.
Yeah, that's a good question. If I'm not mistaken, the 3.4 version should include both of those features.
Thank you, Nofar, and thank you, Maximilian, for the reminder of that. Let me just take a look around now and see have we any other questions or comments for you. I think we're good. And just a reminder that you are free to come off of mute if you'd like, interrupt at any point. It's all fine. But I don't think I see any questions for now, and we are caught up with the end of the demo on the stream. So we shall move on then to our next demo, which is from Adam with the very HD screen. And Adam is going to talk to us about remote execution pre-flight checks and improved logging.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me. As Melanie said, I will be talking about some new improvements and changes that we did to remote execution recently. Actually, the pre-flight checks are a little bit older thing, but I somehow didn't get around to demoing it, but now it was a nice opportunity, so I'm doing two for the price of one. The improved connection handling is quite a fresh thing. It was merged today, like 10 minutes before the demo started, so it's really fresh out of the oven. If you've seen any of my other demos, you know that I like to start my slides with a little bit of history to give you context about what's going on. So this demo is no exception to that. In remote execution, we used net/SSH for quite a long time. It is a pure Ruby implementation of the SSH protocol, and it kind of served us well for almost the entire time we were using that. But it had some minor usability issues. It had somewhat cryptic error messages. There was almost no observability from outside because everything was happening inside a single process, and unless you exposed something explicitly, you just couldn't see it from the outside. But those were just minor issues. The main thing why we eventually left it is because we were stuck with a really old version, and we were pinned on that old version because of other dependencies requiring this specific old version. That wouldn't be an issue, but as the rest of the world was moving on, remote execution using SSH suddenly started working against newer machines. For example, newer Fedoras or enterprise Linuxes, which were using newer crypto policies and started forbidding older ciphers and stuff. You just couldn't run jobs against them, and that was a real showstopper. So instead of somehow patching it, we just moved away from it completely to using SSH as a binary that lives on the system. This change happened in Foreman 3.1. By doing this, we gained support for new crypto policies and even for running jobs against machines running in FIPS mode, which is great, and we really struggled with before. But it wasn't all good. We got even more cryptic error messages. I mean, NetSSH was doing some things for us. For example, when something failed, it would at least try to tell you what kind of a failure it was. But with system SSH, we would just get, okay, either it succeeded or it did not. And it was a little bit hard to know what's going on. It had slightly better observability from outside because we have to spawn a new process to be able to connect to the remote host. And then once there's a new process, you can observe it from outside. But again, it was not not all that great. You can see there's another process, but that's really it. You couldn't really see, for example, what are the exact commands that the smart proxy is running. So it was sometimes a little bit hard to follow what exactly is going on. The other drawback was that a couple of things that used to work before stopped working. For example, before with NetSSH, you could provide both a passphrase for the key and a regular password, and it would try them in order until some of them worked or until it ran out of options. We lost the ability to do that. Another issue is that, for example, authentication errors, which before we could tell, okay, there was an error with the authentication, were kind of reduced to vague error messages such as failed to create remote working directory, exit code 255. And you kind of had to know what it means, which was a really bad user experience if you were just trying to get started with remote execution and you were getting all this weird nonsense and you couldn't really follow what's going on. The underlying theme is that it was hard to know what it's doing and why it's doing that. And it was hard to reproduce it on your own by doing the steps by hand. I mean, we even had users patching their own instances with custom homegrown patches to see what is going on and what are the exact commands that are being run. And that's really bad. No one should really have to do that. So we took a little bit of time, we listened to our users, and we kind of started working on that. The first of the improvements are the pre-flight checks, because as I said, we couldn't really tell what was going on. When you're running a script, we just copy the script over, we make it executable, and then we try to execute it. Or that was the old way. But there's like a million of things which can go wrong during that. And you wouldn't really know. You would get those weird messages about not being able to create a directory when in fact you provided a wrong password. So we added the pre-flight checks. There are two currently. One is that we copy a dummy, a little small script, which basically just exits successfully when you run it. It's all it does. And before we run the job that the user actually wants to run, we try to run this specific thing. And when you do that and it fails, then it really limits down the area in which the issue is happening. So here I'll just try running something. Job.sh is just my script which triggers a job using hammer, and then it follows its output. Right now, I'm running it against a machine to manifest an issue which is caught by this pre-flight check. So once it finishes, we should be able to see. Okay. Failed to execute script on remote machine, exit code 126. I admit that's not ideal, but if you see this, you know what's happening. It tried to run the simple script, which should exit successfully, and it did not exit successfully. So it really limits down the area in which the error could have happened. If you look into the smart proxy logs, and there's a traceback, and I'm not really sure what you can see on the stream, but I'll try to just guess it. Okay, so right here, you can see that we are sending data to some path /test, and this is the dummy script that we are trying to execute. And the dummy script is just exec true, which is literally just exit 0. Then on the next line, you can see that we are making it executable by setting the executable bit and making it word readable. And then on the next line, we try to actually run it, and then we get an error from bash, which says permission denied. Now, if you put 2 and 2 together, you know the script is copied there, you know it has the right permissions, and you get permission denied, then there's only a couple of options what it can be. There has to be something else that is blocking the execution. In this case, it could really be just SE Linux, access control lists, and mount options on the directory. In this exact case, vars tmp is mounted with no exec, so you can't execute anything in it, but it should really just point you to where a specific area where the wrong stuff could have happened. If I just quickly fix this, okay, so I went to the other machine, I mounted it with the right options, and now if I run it, it should pass. But to demonstrate the other preflight check, I will try to change the effective user. So as you may have guessed, the other preflight check is that we actually check if we can change to become a different user. So it's not just us trying to do everything at once and then failing and not knowing what went wrong. We really just try to localize the failure. So in this case, the user doesn't have permissions to become root. So we should get a message saying that it really can't change the user. There we go, failed to change to effective user. And again, it gives you pretty clear idea what went wrong. It's not just something happened. If you go to the logs, you will, of course, see more details. I won't bother you with this right now. But it should, I hope, be helpful to people getting started and debugging stuff. So those are the pre-flight checks. Then the other thing that we added is we improved the interconnection handling. You might have noticed that in the logs that I showed a moment ago, we started printing exact commands. Well, if you have debug logging enabled, we started printing exact commands that are being executed. So if something doesn't work for you, you can just take the logs and you can follow. You can just copy the commands out and you can run them on your own and you can see what's going on. Part of the reworked connection handling is that we restored the ability to use both password and key passphrase, and we are trying to be smart about it. So for example, if you have a key which is protected by a passphrase, we check if the key is protected by a passphrase before we actually try to use it. And if the key is protected by a passphrase and we have no passphrase from the user, we just don't even attempt to use it. And then, of course, we are able to generate more meaningful error messages based on that. So if I just, okay, so this is my real key passphrase. So if I change it to something that doesn't match, and if I provide a wrong password and I try to run it, it will exactly tell us what happened. It won't be no more exit codes 255 and creating directories. No, it will be exactly, come on. It will be exactly, the error will be exactly about remote execution trying to use a public key and not being able to connect with it, and then using a password and not being able to connect with it. There you can see it tells you that it could not establish connection to remote host using any available authentication methods and what methods it tried. So I gave it a password and a key passphrase, so it tried both. If I don't give any and my key is protected by a passphrase, it will just tell me that it was not able to use any authentication method. There we go. And if I look into the logs, we can see right here that it's checking if the private key has a passphrase, that the private key is protected with a passphrase, but that no passphrase was provided, so it's not able to use it. And because we didn't give a password, it could not try to use a password. And Kerberos is disabled on my machine, so it could not use that. And it should really allow you to follow through and follow what's it doing and try to make sense out of it. And this is really all. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or suggestions for more pre-flight checks or anything that we could do, please do message me, do let me know, and I'll be more than happy to try and work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam? Okay, talk. I don't see anything on the live chat either. So thanks again, Adam. And if anyone has questions at a later stage, either after we've gone offline, or you can leave a comment on our community forum, and we would love to hear your feedback. So now we have our final demo of today, and we have Chris, and Chris is going to talk to us about new, I'm assuming, hardware properties card. Chris?
Yep. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here.
With you, I would be scared to guess what acronym you're using and for what, but
Let me make sure this is being shared. All right. Can you see that okay?
yep,
Okay.
that's good.
So this is part of the new host details work. And so what I wanted to show is we added a hardware card. So right here, we've added this hardware properties. We can see that it's a rel, it's a virtual guest. We can see the sockets and the RAM and how many disks. And what I wanted to show is this is actually pretty cool. What we've done is there's sometimes where if, say, a machine is not provisioned from Capello or Foreman, it doesn't report back in how many disks for storage there was. So what we've done is this is a machine that was built from here. So what I want to do is show what happens if you just register a regular content host with Subscription Manager. We'll go back in here, and I'm going to take a look at a RHEL 7 host. And you can see what we've done is we've actually just hidden that field rather than just to say nothing or 0. So that's all I really had. We just added that and kind of like a little magic behind the scenes if the facts aren't reported in correctly, or they're just not reported in.
Good. Thank you very much, Chris. I'll just check to see if anyone has comments for you. And I suppose if anyone has any comments about any of the demo, as we're towards the end now, you'll have to speak now or comment later. And I don't think so. So do we? Yeah. I think then it might be safe for us to wrap up. I don't see anything about the Foreman 3.3 release. I see some activity on the channel related to that, but we don't have an announcement as of right this minute, but it'll probably come later in the day. So with that, I would like to thank all of you who came along to demo today. Thank you very much. Maximilian in particular, thank you very much for your questions and your feedback. And if anyone has anything else, you know where to find us over on the community.foreman.org. And we will be back in a few weeks with another demo. So thank you all, and we'll see you soon.